Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first meeting of this calendar year of the Democracy and General Purposes Committee. My name is Clive English. I'm the chairman of this august committee, and I will be hopefully guiding you through a relatively short meeting. I can open that up. If the fire alarm goes off, please do pay heed, because we do not have a scheduled fire drill as far as I know. If it does go off, Democratic Services officers will establish a safe means of exiting the building, and hopefully will come back and tell us what it is so we can follow them out. Can I ask if anyone is intending, other than our official webcast, to record the meeting? I don't see Councillor Mackay, so I assume not. I ask that just in order to inform people, not in order to stop anyone from doing it should they so wish. But if they do change their minds, can they please let me know? Can I ask that anyone who's got a mobile phone with them either has it on silent mode or has got it turned off? If you do need to speak, can you please indicate, speak through the chairman, turn your microphone on and turn your microphone off when you've finished. So without further ado, I shall proceed with this meeting. Item 1, apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor O'Riordan and Councillor Cook, who I'm told is not very well, and our best wishes are with Councillor Cook this evening. Are there any other apologies? Now, in that case, notification of substitute members.
Councillor Russell for Councillor Cook.
Councillor Parfitt for Councillor Riordan.
Thank you very much. Urgent items. We have an amended recommendation which I intend to take in relation to the community governance review, and I don't believe there are any other urgent items. Are there any notifications of visiting members? I see two. Councillor Harper, what item are you here for? I think I can guess, but...
Yeah, I'm here for the Community Governance Review, item 16.
Thank you. And Councillor Dawes.
Hiya, I'm here for item 16 as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I take it with no further additional members online or anything? Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures by members and officers? I don't have any. Don't see any others. In that case, clearly no request for dispensation. Are there any disclosures of lobbying? Councillor Russell.
Item 16.
Yes, wearing my many other hats as a member of more parish councils than I can care to mention, I have been lobbied on item 16 multiple times. Councillor Thompson.
As have I, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any others? No? Okay. Consider whether an item should be taken in private because of the possible disclosure of exempt information. I'm not aware of any possible exemptions, so I intend to take the entire agenda in public. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. That brings us to the minutes of the meeting of the 18th of November, which seems a very long time ago. For those of us who can remember, are these an accurate record? In that case, unless, as there are no amendments, I will ask that members approve those. Thank you very much. I'll sign those in due course. Presentation of petitions. I'm not aware of any petitions this evening. Yes. Question and answer session. We don't have any from local residents, although as the community governance review ramps up, I'm sure there will be many in months to come. Question from members to the chairman, if any, which we don't have any, and the committee work programme on page 9. Sorry, page 5. Any comments or questions on the committee work programme? This has been slightly amended, as members may remember. We were going to have a community governance review for Grove Green, which has sort of been overtaken by the wider events, so it will be looked at as part of the effectively as part of the wider community governance review. But other than that, it is pretty much as was. Anything you'd like to say on that, Mr. O'Connell? No. Councillor Thompson?
I would be pleased to hear from Ryan O'Connell on the Student Advisory Board, please. So
On the what, sorry?
On the Student Advisory Board item, please.
Oh, please, yes.
There was a resolution through full council, which then came through to Cabinet to look at the formation of a Student Advisory Board, a body that would consist of students and something that could be used for consultation and engagement with young people. That work is due to come via a report to this committee at its next meeting. We had a very successful Youth Advisory Committee meeting in an informal setting, but we played the formality of it for the students who came along from Victor Grammar School, who were very impressive, it has to be said. And I think there's a lot of enthusiasm in the room for taking that sort of activity further forward. So that will also feed into the thoughts in that report coming to committee in due course. Thank you.
Talking about advisory bodies, there was also going to be a report on a local development plan advisory board, but that coming to this committee, but that is being taken forward by another route. But I do anticipate that body will, in due course, be established, but not through this committee, because it will be effectively a subcommittee advising the Cabinet, so it has to go through a different route, which is why it doesn't appear on the work programme, as some people might have been expecting it to. So we move on to reports of outside bodies on page 6, and we indeed have one, which makes a pleasant change, which is the Kent Downs National Landscape Joint Advisory Committee report, which is as set out really on the papers. It's fairly self-explanatory, but if members want to ask any questions, feel free. Okay, thank you very much. Do we note that report? Councillor Thompson.
Mr. Chairman, I regret that I don't know who the author is of said document.
That is the one thing that hasn't been included, isn't it? That's quite curious. It's Councillor Harwood. Yes, I think
I might have guessed, but it would be nice to see his name on the piece of paper.
I think it is a fair point that authors of reports should be indicated in the papers. Yeah. We will pick that up for future reference. Thank you very much, Councillor Gooch.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for raising that issue, Councillor Thompson. It's so easy to just assume these things. I was going to say how nice it is to have a report back from one of our representatives on these organisations. We sit here saying, yeah, they can go on it, yeah, they can go on it, and never hear any more. But it's really good to see this. And yes, absolutely, the author's name ought to be there. Thank you very much, Chairman.
You will have a report on the Community Rail Partnership at the next meeting, I hope. So I shall be writing that myself. I can feel fairly free to promise that will come forward. Right. I do encourage other people to do so. Right. Do we note that report then? Thank you very much. Moving rapidly on to the reason everyone really came tonight, which is the outside bodies appointments commencing on page 7 to 27. Does either Mrs. Woodhouse or Mr. O'Connell wish to make any introductory remarks?
Just very quickly, Chairman, in amongst the inevitable excitement that will be at doing all the nominations and appointments, we'll just highlight the second recommendation, which is around the removal of the outside body position on the Maidstone Cycling Campaign Forum, which has been through the new protocol that we agreed some years ago, but it has had 2 years of going through the outside body process. 4 occasions it has been advertised and no nominations came forward. So using that protocol that we agreed, I actually can't remember when we agreed it, 2020, I think, it would be removed, and that is the recommendation tonight. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that probably has been one of those where, because certain people are sitting on it anyway, they didn't nominate themselves because they're wearing other hats. So no harm will be done in practice by that recommendation, which we'll come to at the end of the process. We'll go through the appointments we do have first. The first one is for the College Millennium Green Trust. This is historically reserved for members of High Street Ward. Councillor Kadka already sits on the body through another channel. Councillor Grennan and I had a discussion, and she decided, as she was putting a name forward for another body this evening, that she would leave this one with me, as I am currently a member. That doesn't mean that she won't be able to be involved, because it's likely that she may in fact get co-opted, so that power exists. So as I'm the only eligible candidate under the rules, I'm going to ask the committee if they're willing to endorse that nomination. Yeah, by all means, by all means.
Thank you, Chairman. Shouldn't you have declared an interest? No. Why not?
Because we've been through this process of whether it constitutes an interest when Neil was a clerk to this committee. Research was done, and it very clearly isn't.
I'm not complaining. It's a point of order. I'm just
Councillor Peter Parvin raised this very point 6 years ago, 7 years ago. It was investigated at that time, and the consensus of advice was it does not constitute an interest.
Oh, fair dues. Okay, thank you, Chairman.
If a remuneration was received, or any recompense in kind, then it would constitute an interest.
Councillor, I just wondered if we ought to take this opportunity to question you and interview you on this post, given that you're here and we're here, and it would be great fun, but I probably won't, but I'm happy to propose that we put you forward.
I put it to the committee to endorse the nomination. Right? Thank you, members. Move on to the Howard de Walden Centre, another body which I serve on. We have gone through the process of offering the nomination to ward councillors. For a number of reasons, ward councillors have declined, not least because one of the eligible councillors, his father is the centre manager. So an interest would have arisen in that case. So Councillor Mark Nagy declined. Therefore, we have advertised it to the general public, and we have I'm pleased to say we have a member of the general public who resides within the catchment area, who has put her name forward. I know the lady in question. She's very active in a number of community groups, and I'd hope that the committee would accept her willingness to take part. So I will propose Javita Sangapani be appointed. If you want to ask questions, please, by all means.
Thank you, Chairman. I noticed that this lady has also put her name forward for one of the other outside bodies, and it is nice to see a person, somebody from outside apply. I was just wondering, as the Howden de Walden Centre does involve youngsters, are we under any obligation to make sure that they have gone through the safeguarding process, or is that an issue for the centre to go through?
I mean, it would be an issue for the centre to go through, although I believe that she has been through it, because amongst many other activities, she runs a classical Indian dance school for young people. So as part of the process for running an accredited classical Indian dance school, she's had to do that anyway. So. No, but that is true, but the committee doesn't require those of trustees because they're not directly involved in any unsupervised activity with children. They basically just run the centre. Councillor Nagy, Dave Nagy, would of course be in that position where he would directly be involved, so has had the check. No, I wasn't suggesting it was transferable. I'm just saying that her good character, if you like, has been established in terms of a general reference. So I'd like to propose her. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. Moving on to the controversial Maidstone Area Arts Partnership. Actually, is a very sound organisation, and I'm glad to see that the portfolio holder is taking an interest in this area of his work and has put his name forward. Anything you want to say, Councillor Thompson, in support of your nomination?
I have written what I have written, Chair.
Well, are there any questions as he's here?
Thank you, Chairman. I can't let you get away scot-free, can I? I just wondered if you could sing, that's all, because we've got some fantastic groups within the Maidstone Area Partnership. Music is an important part of well-being and all that jazz, if I can put it that way. And I think that you really enjoy your membership being part of it. And I'm sure that you can offer an awful lot. And please go to all the concerts. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure your singing voice is something I want to hear.
I thank Councillor Gooch for her question. I do not thank the Chair for his interjection. I'm happy to join in with community singing. I suspect I shouldn't sing for my supper, since that would then become a pecuniary interest, which would then disqualify me.
I shouldn't laugh. There's nothing wrong with his singing voice, really. I propose that Councillor Thompson be appointed to the Maidstone Area Arts Partnership. Councillor Jeffreys seconding. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. We now come to a slightly harder one, because we've got two nominations. Do we only have the one place on this? Or do we have two places? How many places do we have on this? One Maidstone bid advisory. How many places do we have? One or two? We used to have two, but in that case, as we got two.
So there's 2 vacancies and 2 nominations.
Well, that's good, isn't it? So, sorry? Right. No. Right. We have 2 places available, just confirming that, because on the one Maidstone bid advisory body. Happily, we have 2 nominations. No, it's fortunate. We have one continuing member, Councillor Conyard, who is already a member of the advisory board, which is good, and we have one new member seeking to join, so a mixture of experience and new involvement, which is nice to see, really. You have the 2 papers in front of you. Would you like to ask any questions? Councillor Gooch.
Sorry about this. What struck me about these 2 separate applications was the enthusiasm from Ms. Greenan.
Yes.
I looked at her application and I thought, you know, there was stuff to read. And I thought, I looked at Mr. Conyers and I thought, really? But having said that, I've got no earthly reason to not support Councillor Conyers. He's a good guy, why not? But I thought that Councillor Greenan's one was enthusiastic, and it was full of motive, as if she really wants to be on it.
Oh, she does.
And it's good to see.
Um,
Thank you.
I think, having been on this in the past, I think it's, without bringing personalities or into it, I think it's quite helpful to have someone who represents High Street Ward on that. And it's also useful in that Richard Conyard represents the other part of, one of the other two parts of the town centre in the old East Ward now, Penedon Heath. So we got a fairly good geographical coverage of what the bid area currently is. Shame we don't have 3 members, so we couldn't include someone from Norwood, but maybe in due course. So are there any other questions? Unless, in that case, can I propose en bloc both nominations be accepted? Thank you, Councillor Parfitt. Those in favour? Thank you very much, members. Right. That just brings us to the Maidstone Relief in Need charity. This doesn't meet very often, but we have nevertheless found it quite difficult to actually find someone to do it. Bit of background, this is basically the succour of last resort, really, for the charity for those who've exhausted pretty much every other option available in Maidstone Borough. It needs a Maidstone Borough Council nominee, really, to continue to operate, although it doesn't meet very often, only a couple of times a year, generally, if that. Javita Sangipani has put a name forward for this. I admit that I did ask her to, unlike the Howard de Warden where she volunteered, but volunteers worth 18 pressed women. Councillor Gooch.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand that the Mayor has a seat on this as well, so it'd be alongside. And what's so peculiar, in inverted commas, about this particular charity is that its limitations, its geographical limitations.
Yes, to the old
and
borough.
I do hope that this very nice lady, which I hope that we will agree that she can be put onto this committee, I hope she'll be provided with some kind of map and guidance, because it's not your borough. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, the lady in question is very actively involved in the community, and she did ask a lot of questions about about this and Howard de Warden and other things. So fairly sure she's going into it with open eyes. But I did tell her that if she needed to ask any questions, because I had sat on it as mayor, to just ring up and ask, So I'd like to propose her, because we've tried quite a long time to get someone, and now we have someone. So is that seconded? Thank you very much, members. All in favour? Thank you. Moving on, Vinters Valley Trust Local Nature Reserve. There's a lot I could say about this, but I shall not. Suffice to say, this is a very long-standing, very important nature reserve on the boundaries of Penedon Heath and Boxley Ward in the past, and now Penedon Heath and Grove Green Ward. It is one of Maidstone's natural jewels, and we are asked to appoint a trustee, which and we have one nomination in the name of Mark Nagy, who is very, very keen to do it. So I'd like to propose him, unless there are any questions first. That's seconded by Councillor Gooch. Anyone? Those in favour? That's agreed. That brings us to the end of the appointments, brings us to the second issue, which is the official removal of the Maidstone Cycling Campaign Forum from the list of appointees. Various members of the Borough Council do have in fact been involved in this, including myself, so I don't think the removal will actually damage the organisation in any way. But Councillor Gooch, do you have a question?
Yes, please, Chairman. You have mentioned why they wish to be removed. Perfectly understandable. Thank you for letting us know. But I couldn't see that explanation anywhere in the papers.
Should have been there, probably.
Have I missed it? Where was it? Because I was just going to say, I wish somebody had said. I beg your pardon, Chairman, I completely missed it. Thank you.
As I said, it should have been there. Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Right. Okay, then I propose the recommendation on the papers. Is that seconded? Agreed. Thank you. Right, we move on to constitutional amendment, item 15, monitor and officers delegation. I'm sorry, there's the minute. Did you want to say anything, Mr. O'Connell or Angela, Mrs. Woodhouse, on this? This is just housekeeping, really. As you know, the monitoring officer has delegation to carry out certain contingent, shall we say, changes to the Constitution, and we discovered there was a missing schedule which has now been reinserted in the Constitution, as it should never have been missing in the first place. I hope people are happy to approve its readmission. Agreed? Okay, thank you very much. That brings us on to the Community Governance Review, which we're all eagerly awaiting. We can never have enough reviews. Would you like to introduce this, Mr. O'Connell?
I can assure you, you can definitely have enough reviews. There are two key elements of this report. The primary one relates to the Community Governance Review, which is the main thrust of the report in front of you. The other is the process for retaining the Mayor of Maidstone, with its long history that can be seen around us in this chamber. So on the first element of the Community Governance Review, this report's focus is on process and procedure, giving an indication of the work involved and requests the setup of a member working group. The catalyst for the review, given we have recently had a whole borough Community Governance Review, is devolution and local government reorganisation, which fundamentally changes the local governance likely to be in place. This significantly changes the basis on which the previous review was conducted. The report is not considering what outcomes may arise from the review. That is something for later in the process. And at the early stage, the intention is to keep all options on the table, which at least initially requires us to look at the urban area as a whole. However, it is the terms of reference that will set the structure for the review, not this report. And should it be agreed, there is work to do for officers and members to formulate suitable terms of reference and further decision making to be done that involves this committee and the council for the terms of reference to be agreed. You will see from the process outlined that the structure of our recent whole borough community governance review is proposed, which adheres to the statutory guidance and good practice. This includes 2 periods of extensive consultation, one that seeks all views and looks to gather information from the community, and one that will be on more specific options and proposals. This also requires us to consider growth in the borough from future developments. So there is a lot of work to do to deliver it within the timescales. Formal commencement of the review starts once the terms of reference are published. We then have 12 months, so front-loading the work and getting the terms of reference right is crucial. With that in mind, the timetable for the commencement of the review is indicative at this stage. This is because it could change significantly depending on several factors that will arise in the next few months. If the KCC elections go ahead in May, which we are waiting news about, then the proposed timetable would be paused and restarted post-May 2025. If Kent is in this round of reorganisation, depending on timings provided from central government, the Community Governance Review may be recommended to change its timing. Research is currently underway on the best route forward for the Mayor of Maidstone to be retained, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when I come onto that topic area. But this may also mean that the timing of the Community Governance Review is amended. There was also a requirement from this committee and from the last Community Governance Review agreed by Council that Grove Green be the subject of a further review to commence around now. Grove Green would be included in this proposed urban area Community Governance Review, and the committee are asked to acknowledge that this review will therefore meet the requirement this committee and Council set, albeit the final timetable may be pushed further away depending on reorganisation timings, as I outlined earlier. On the topic of the Mayor of Maidstone, so the second element, the report briefly outlines to the committee that in the absence of a parish or town council, there is a process through which Maidstone's charter can be maintained through the establishment of charter trustees, done via order made by the Secretary of State as part of local government reorganisation. This is set out in 2.7. Further work needs to be carried out to establish the legal position and options for the mayoralty. In order to retain the Mayor of Maidstone its Royal Charter, the timings of the formation of any parish or town council and the timings of a Community Governance Review outcome being implemented need to be carefully considered. However, we do know that if a town council is not formed prior to reorganisation, the mayoralty can still continue. Overall, this is not a simple process, and we have a lot of unknowns as the reorganisation process is at such an early stage. Further research will be conducted and advice sought on the best way forward as matters become clearer over the next few months. Taking all of that into account and having reviewed the risks set out in 5.2 and 5.3 of the report, I still ask the committee to agree that the work on the review commence to prepare the terms of reference, and importantly that a working group be appointed. However, I would like to amend the recommendations to reflect the uncertainty and need for flexibility on the timings of the Community Governance Review for the reasons that I have outlined. These have been circulated around to you with the changes in bold. However, I'll just quickly read through the changes for the benefit of the webcast and the recording. So, recommendation 1 would be amended to that the work on the review commence with the draft terms of reference to be produced for this committee with the aim of recommending them to Council in April 2025, subject to confirmation on the status of the KCC elections and a review of the timings of the Community Governance Review, alongside the detailed timings of devolution and local government reorganisation. Recommendation 2 stays as it is, and then I'm also suggesting an additional recommendation 3. The committee agreed that the requirement for review of community governance in Grove Green is met by its inclusion in the review of the urban area, including if that review is delayed. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any immediate questions? Yeah, I'm just going to take a note of those at this point. I'm not actually going to respond to those. I'm just taking a note of these. No, I'm just taking a note of these. All right. First of all, can I call Councillor Harper? Right. I just wanted to see what the list was.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to see this report because I had been speaking with Ryan and Angela once we heard of the local government review coming up, thinking that we needed to address this topic. And I have in the past been thinking about the need for the non-parish part of Maidstone to either have individual parish councils representing the current wards because of the benefits, even under the current structure of having parish councils, gives people extra input through those organisations, and the non-urban part, the urban part of Maidstone has always suffered, I think, as a result of not having parish council. So I think definitely moving over to a unitary, and we don't quite know what the boundaries will be, but we know the population is likely to be 500,000 plus, because that's what the government target is. If we don't do anything, then all the people living in the wards in Maidstone which don't have a parish council will literally have no local representation. Now, I think there's a massive need to address that, which obviously I fully support the report. I think some of the things over the next few months, when assuming you vote this through, is the geography. And whilst at leaders, which I think some of us were at earlier on, the geography of whether we go with West Kent or whatever, but the geography of Maidstone, I think could actually be quite an interesting subject. Do we keep it to just the unwalled parts to look at, or do we include the whole urban area? Because if you widen it out, you obviously look at places like Barming, and Beerstead and Downswood, which are all part of an urban area. So there's quite a lot of things to think about. You need to think about the size, because obviously, as the report says, Northampton has got a population of about 150,000, and obviously one parish covering the whole of Maidstone would also be a very large organisation. Or do you go for potentially, smaller units, either based on our current wards or groups of wards or whatever? There's a lot to think about here, and I think a lot to have a good open discussion and negotiate, a good discussion with our residents through the consultation. I would urge that at least at the first part of the consultation is a very wide one where all the various options are being presented, because for all we know, whilst I hope that the committee's enthusiastic as I am on this, the residents in the area may say, actually, we don't want this, but, I imagine that they probably, would do. I think Ryan's pointed out the method of having charter trustees in terms of a mayor, so potentially we don't, in terms of taking this forward, need to necessarily worry about the post of Mayor of Maidstone, because you can do that through the charter trustee route if you decided to go for a different option within the Maidstone area. So yeah, I'm hopeful that I will be involved in these discussions on this going forward. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. Councillor Dawes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I read this review, I understood it was for Grove Green, but it seems that Ryan was a bit clearer this time that it is only the consultation for Grove Green and none of the other parishes has been listed on the front cover. No, it's not. Okay. Because our parishes, they strongly have been going through a lot of boundary changes, and they have no wishes in any means to change the boundary again and having more reviews being built on them. They want their parishes to be remaining parishes and not have any more bits of lands gnawed off of their councils. So can I have some answers on this, please?
As the report sets out, there will be an option for no change. There will also be options for some change. I can tell you that I've already had, because I sit on a number of parish councils, as you may be aware, and involved with others, a fair amount of feedback, and tell you that, for example, Tovel Parish Council doesn't want the status quo. What it wants is the Coombe Estate. So its first and last territorial demand in Europe is Coombe. So that's not a no change option, but it is a different option than the one on the papers. What I would say is that one of the things with community governance review, and I think Mr. O'Connell was fairly clear about this, in an excellent report, by the way, is that no outcomes are predetermined. It will be what the public want, really, or at least the majority of the public. I don't think we're ever going to get unanimity, and that's not possible, but we will go as a council with the majority consensus views insofar as we can, with what happens. And if that is a different boundary, which is not quite the boundary on the map you see there, then that'll be fine. But obviously with this, you've got to give some sort of initial proposal, because otherwise we're just going to be, there will be no coherence to the discussion. It's essentially, as I used to say, still say in University Challenge, a starter for 10, not an outcome. I hope that gives you some reassurance. And other parishes. Similarly, there will be discussions once this shape is finally determined, even if there's no change as to what the arrangements between the new unitary council which will be for them, but and parishes as to what the functional divide is between the two tiers going forward. So there is a huge amount of change. Mr. O'Connell.
So I think it's important to recognise that informing that the terms of reference, just how important they are to the running of the review, and in there we will set objectives. Last time we did it in the formation of questions that we would ask as we were looking at different areas, because the aim of a community governance review is to try to identify the most appropriate form of community governance for that area, but you can almost translate that into a number of different things, but it does all have to relate back to community. And I think we would recognise that parishes do have established communities, but we need to make sure that when we're conducting this review that we are asking those questions correctly, and I think we would all welcome parishes' input. So when the decision-making process occurs for the terms of reference to come forward, so this hasn't touched that at all. We haven't defined the questions that we would ask. We haven't defined the final area that we would be looking at. Parishes will have the opportunity to come forward to suggest things for the terms of reference, which would need to meet the requirements of a community governance review and follow the statutory guidance on community governance reviews. And then when we go out to the consultation phase, that first phase, we'll be going out for views on the basis of what we've put in those terms of reference. So there's still an opportunity for the parish to see that when it comes forward to this committee and then ultimately to council as well. And then there'll be an opportunity to feed into that first set of recommendations. Well, in fact, there won't be any recommendations. They will be going out to the community, so there'll be an opportunity for them to put their views forward. That will then shape what we then put forward as specific recommendations, and there'll be another opportunity to comment on those should they affect any parishes at that point. And I really can't say from this position what we will end up with, but we do know that the key driver for this is local government reorganisation and the impact that will have on the town centre and the urban area more widely. And that could actually lead to the expansion of some existing parishes, as well as the reduction in existing parishes, or the joining of parishes, or the creation of lots of small parishes. I really don't know what's going to come out of it, and I wouldn't want anyone to think that we have predetermined any outcomes. So there's a proper decision-making process to go through, and parishes will be involved throughout that process.
As I said, with the previous community governance review, which I had the privilege to be involved with to some extent, along with some other members of this committee, the final outcome was somewhat different, shall we say, than the original proposals. And was very much shaped by the comments of the public. And indeed, the proposal to have a look at Grow Green was shaped by some of the comments that we weren't able to pick up in that review at that stage. So I hope that, unlike some other organisations, the Borough Council is in listening mode rather than we've got a model and you're going to have to, take that model. Right. So does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes, it does.
Right. Councillor Gooch.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here, but I see that on one of the options, or the preferred option, includes the formation of an informal member working group. Who will be asked? How do we go about that working group, and who will be on it? Do we know?
So the proposal is for a 5-member working group. It would meet fairly informally, and we would ask group leaders to put forward one member from that group to come and work with officers on the work we've got to do on the review.
Oh, that's fine then, thank you, because I was thinking that Councillor Harper would be a good one on this one, because he's got a lot of, well, I know he's already had input And I do think that if I've got any strong feelings, I'll let him know. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
You're not known as being short on strong feelings, Councillor Gooch. Right, Councillor Thompson, I do have a complete list, I think. Councillor Thompson, you were next.
This isn't a question, to be clear.
Feel free to make a statement if you want.
Thank you very much indeed. As some people in this room will know, I have some wider remarks to make on this subject. We are all sometimes bemused by the highfalutin names given to things in local government and elsewhere. Community governance review, in this particular case, is apt. It is combining the interests of community with the administrative business of governance. Not terribly exciting all the time that it works well, and unfortunately exciting if it doesn't. So it's a good heading. As some in this room will know, it was a particular feature at the time at which I was first elected and then subsequently re-elected. It is clearly important that the relationship between the borough and parish councils is seamless and smooth and effective. That puts the onus on the quality and characteristics of ward councillors and parish councillors and the borough council and the parish councils of which they are part. Local representation is imperative for community and governance to be brought together. And in some cases, and some of you will know, I'm deliberately not making this personal or specific, some areas are large. They are sometimes represented by established councillors of many years service, and some of them wearing 2 hats, or even 3 indeed.
Or 4 or 5.
Quite so, which adds complexity and sometimes doesn't help transparency. These large areas sometimes cover diverse types of neighbourhood, and unfortunately this can lead either in reality or in perception to a sense of democratic deficit, which is complained about if precepts and budgets are referred to. I do not wish this evening to be personal or to air any washing dirty or otherwise from the past about these things, but to make constructive comments looking forwards. What was 2 years ago and some a business as usual review of parish boundaries, it turned out, at least from my perspective, to be not so straightforward. And there was some less than positive community feeling in some of the places in which I served and circulated, both in the councils, amongst councillors and some residents. So to be specific, there was limited consultation. The consultation that took place was overly complex. I do like a complicated spreadsheet, and I was confused, for what it's worth. There were some things that happened online, there were some things that happened offline. There was consultation and representation made through ward councillors. Some, but not all of that information, features in 2.3 on our document today. I must submit that more than 24 responses from the area in question were communicated by one way or another, but they haven't been shown as valid notes in this case. That is not now important. I'm looking forwards as to the lessons to be learned from this. In particular, some letters from the council about the community governance review, it turned out, were not delivered to some of the addresses to which they were addressed. A mistake that has been generously acknowledged, and I would want to say at this point, after the preceding meeting to this one in 2023 at which I spoke and referred to the video of it to residents in the area referred to in 2.3, an unusual phenomenon, I'm sure, that video of democracy in general purposes has been communicated to residents. So, to look forwards, this review needs to be community-minded and deliver competent governance.
Can you bring your remarks
Yes.
to a close, please?
It needs to be careful, transparent and collegiate. It needs to give advanced information and genuinely consult, being inclusive of all voices, especially those who are digitally excluded, so that we achieve both democratic representation and accountability for the spending of taxpayers' money, be that by precepts or otherwise. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, hopefully this process will be as robust as possible, and I'm sure that various members of this council and others will be assisting with making sure as many people are as aware of the process as possible. I'm sure those of us who are wearing various hats will try and get the information out in as honest and shall we say, level playing field, not trying to tempt to prejudge the answer for a community way that we all can, given our responsibility as ward councillors to communicate the substance of a consultation when it comes to that. So I hope all members will be doing that in an objective and honest manner. Councillor Sams.
Thank you. Just wanted to say that I've got some reassurance of what's been said tonight by you, Chair, and also by Ryan. So I've got some reassurance of what's been said tonight by officers and by yourself, and that there are no predetermined outcomes. But can I ask specifically that before the consultation, I think you've already mentioned it, that we need to involve the affected and named parish councils at the earliest opportunity, because this and in how this will evolve, and because I think this is a major piece of work that, you know, all the things that the trouble is, Ryan, is that it's all the things we don't know, isn't it? We think they're going to pop along, and really we're not absolutely certain they will pop along, and so that's the reason for the recommendation. I get that entirely, but I think it's about giving reassurance to the parish councils that already exist and that who we're talking about, that they will have involvement at the very earliest opportunity. So that's all I wanted to say, so thank you.
Thank you, that's a very fair point, Councillor Sams. Taking off my borough hat and putting on my multiple parishes hat, I share your concern, and I hope that is indeed what we will do, and that we will demonstrate a model of best practice in terms of inclusivity, because that is certainly the objective. And I'm sure you'll let me know if we aren't doing that. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Chair. So from what I understand it here is we're about to start a study. So in order to start the study, we need to define the scope and then terms of reference. My worry with what we've got on the papers tonight is, building on from what Councillor Sam said, is that we have got parish councils that have got really distinct identities, well established, and I understand that what you're saying is that their views will be taken into the mix as we do this, but no one likes a reorganisation that they feel is being done to them. So I'm actually wondering if we've missed a step here, and I'm wondering if we've missed a step in defining the scope. And in defining the scope, I think we do need to speak to CALC and to the parish councils, and then come back once we've decided to define the scope with them, to then jointly set the terms of reference with a parish councillor or someone that the parish councils have appointed into the working party. So in effect, 5 borough council ward members and whoever the parish council choose to represent them as a 6th person on that. Because I think that way from the start you do get a better buy-in, and people won't feel that things are being done to them. I mean, there's nothing worse, is there, than getting a report and looking at a agenda item when it says wards affected, and you read, you know, Bourton Monchelsea, a very long established parish council, and, you know, some of the others, Coxheath, distinct identity, Leeds, distinct identity, and I think, you know, you want to start a process in the right way. So at the moment, I'm not convinced to go with exactly what we've got as the recommendations. I'm just wondering, and I don't know if anyone else has got any thoughts, whether we're just missing an initial step of working with our partners in setting the scope before we bowl into the terms of reference? Thank you.
I hear what you're saying. I would say that Tovel Parish Council and others do not have a great regard for the calc area officers, so it would be divisive with some parish councils to actually have a calc representative, because some parish councils are not really on very good terms with the area committee. So I just made that as an observation. I'm not particularly involved in that situation, but it is an observation I've seen that maybe about 10 parishes are actively not happy with. But that's just an observation from the situation I observe. I'm happy to consider amendments to the recommendation, but I'm not quite sure what amendment you're actually making. Mr. O'Connor.
So, I mean, one of the first things that we could undertake to discuss with the working group is how we engage with parishes in the formation of the terms of reference. And we can do that before it comes forward. We need to move quickly. We need to get the working group up and running. We haven't really got long before the next Democracy and General Purposes meeting, obviously, depending on what the final timetable is, but if necessary, we could perhaps push it back a little bit. But yeah, the first working group meeting, more than happy to discuss with the members of that group how we take forward a meaningful consultation with potentially affected parishes in how we form the terms of reference.
Councillor Gooch, you are next, then Councillor Parfitt.
Thank you, Chairman. My parish council is a member of the Kent Association of Local Councils. We pay our subs to them and we get an awful lot of valuable, invaluable advice from them, training from them. And then, whilst there may be 10 parish councils that think they're not much good, I'm sure that there are 15, I can't add up, but the other parish councils, or a lot of them, do value Kent Association of Local Councils. Thinking forward, and I was very interested to hear what Claudine was saying, because actually, whatever the outcome of this governance review, 1 town council, 3 parishes, who knows, they will surely want to be included in the Kent Association of Local Councils. And I think I'm wondering if there might be an introductory letter to all the parishes, including Calc, to say, by the way, this is what we're doing. But I take your point. I don't want to preempt what the working group is going to do, but I just really wanted to put a favourable comment down for Kent Association of Councils.
I was vice chairman of the organisation at county level for 10 years, and I have no doubt about the value of the county association, and none of the Maidstone members have any doubt about the value of the county office or the association. I merely observe they're not necessarily an entirely unifying figure in terms of the local committee, who would be the people we would probably be engaging with. However, that's not for me to say, it's for the working group to determine at the appropriate time, not for me to express really. So I was probably getting ahead of myself but the important thing I think is that we hear from all parish councils who may be affected at the relevant stage. Councillor Parfitt, then I'll be coming over this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was really just to follow on from what Councillor Russell was saying. It does very much feel that this has been put onto the parish councils rather than them being actively invited. And I do think, you know, I had to alert all my parish councils that this was actually coming onto this agenda, and I don't know what the mechanism for, perhaps as Councillor Russell has said, we invite, and I also think, because there's so many parishes involved here, yeah, perhaps we should just include everybody rather than just picking out some of the other, and, you know, because if you think Leeds Langley, that's very close to places like Hollingbourne. I mean, where do you draw the line? And I think perhaps it would be either better to make it all inclusive, um, or or come back a step and invite those to be involved. Thank you.
My feeling is that although we're looking at this from the starting point of the town centre, that there will be parishes, not necessarily in the town centre, that may wish to look at issues. If we get representations on to that extent, I would imagine that we could take those on board. Mr. O'Connell.
So the line that has been drawn currently, and I expect it to be reduced when we look at the terms of reference we work with the working group, is the current defined urban area as set out in the Local Plan Review 2024. And then there are some potential impacts that there could be on some neighbouring parishes to that. But I don't know that there will be, and I actually think that ultimately, when I put that line in front of the working group, we'll probably decide to shape it slightly differently. But that was just my starting point for when we're talking about the urban area, where we have a defined urban area already established in a policy. So that was the starting point, and that's where that list of wards affected comes from. But yes, there is obviously work to do to define that clearly.
I mean, potentially, if you're in a, I mean, don't want to extend this too far, but potentially if you're in, I don't know, a parish that is partly in the urban area and partly not, and then you look at the boundary of the urban area, you might, by sheer extension, end up looking at the other boundaries of that parish as well, because of the consequences of possible changes in relation to the urban areas. So I take your point. It does involve more parishes perhaps than are apparent or are listed in the report. So yes, and whilst I understand as a parish councillor that it can seem that this has come out of sort of left field and it's being imposed, I assure you that with the intention is that the working group, when formed, will be as open to representations as it's possible to be, and if parish councils have views on what should be in those terms of reference, we will, I hope, be taking those on board. Councillor Jeffrey, I think you were next.
Thank you. First off, thank you to the officers for bringing this report at this early stage. Time, I believe, is essential in this. At some point, we may lose our decision-making ability under the reorganisation rules. We don't know when that will be, and clearly, even if we start now, we're looking at May 26. So I think we need to get on with this and get on with it quickly. And some of the comments are clearly valid and welcome, but they're probably working group stuff rather than here. I note that the majority of people live in the urban area in this borough, and the majority of people do not have parish representation. And I think that under a huge unitary authority is a real problem. The lack of voice will be will be an issue for people. I do think the consultation and engagement is going to be difficult. I think people probably have other things to worry about, so getting that right is going to be essential. But I do think it is urgently needed in whatever form it is. I'm a townie, and I would welcome this parish town council, whatever we call it, in whatever form it is. And I'd love to give Councillor English a chance to sit on yet another parish council, because I don't think he's got enough. So I would like to propose the recommendations in the amended recommendations set out in the paper.